Last year, consumers worldwide spent $2 trillion online, and merchants are racing to meet the growing demand for digital commerce. But more transactions, coupled with oceans of stolen data and security breaches, has made them more vulnerable than ever, battling increasingly sophisticated and varied fraud attacks, and they are financially liable for it all. Today on Merchant Matters, Richard Barbieri, Senior Risk Operations Manager at Etsy.
I would say there's a short answer to that question and a long answer. And the short answer to what thieves steal is everything. They just take everything. Anything that's not nailed down, they'll take. But the long answer we've discovered is, I think traditionally there's an assumption that the relationship between the price of an item and how desirable it is to a thief is linear. Something low dollar, thieves don't want. Something high dollar, thieves want. But what we've really seen at Etsy is that it's more of sort of an XY axis, where one of those axes is the riskiness of the item and the other one is the price. So you can have an item that's quite expensive and quite risky. Obviously those exist. But you can also have items that are relatively inexpensive but are still quite risky. Generally in those cases, a thief probably wants that for themselves rather than is going to want it to be reselling. Fun things are the stuff that's low risk and low price, because it's interesting to see what are the things that, from a fraud perspective, not necessarily just from a general perspective, but from a fraud perspective, are totally undesirable. And it's just fun to look at those items and see what we never look at in our fraud reviews. One of the interesting ones we've discovered on Etsy is anything that has the word plush in the title. So like stuffed animals, or people make pillows out of cookies, or they'll make a custom plush version of your pet for you. People buy that kind of stuff. And it's absolutely as safe as it can be on the site. It's so funny. Nobody ever tries to steal those kinds of things. I think the biggest thing any fraud team needs to be looking at is what their total costs are, essentially their ROI. That's not to say that a fraud team needs to be profitable in the sense that if you spend $100,000, you have to stop $200,000 of fraud. I don't think that. But I think, you look sort of across the board, it's really important to be able to come and say to your manager, look, here's what we spent last year and here's what we stopped. And, a lot of the time, I think what you stop, if a fraud team didn't exist, what you stop would have been 3 or 4 times more that would have happened because you stop someone and they stop. But I think that's the sort of single thing you can do, is to know your numbers and have your metrics and be able to point to what you did. I just think that's going to be the future. As we get, as e-commerce continues to grow, volumes continue to get higher and higher, it's never going to be possible to have manual review teams grow at that rate. You just can't keep throwing people at a problem. And, machine learning and automation is going to be the thing that bridges that gap between the growth in e-commerce and the limits in growing a team. Account takeovers. And especially account takeovers where the bad actor doesn't change any information on the account until after they've completed an order. It's one thing if they go in, they try to change the password, they try to change the shipping address, because you can put steps in place there to do that. But where they don't do that until afterwards, and then they try to reroute a package, that's really tough to stop. So that's the big one for us.